Hello, good morning, good evening, and wherever you are, we are back with Geotech Politics, and with me as usual, KZ Zuberi from Chicago, US, is here. Today we will be discussing very particular topic, and that is how India and Pakistan are tackling each other off the battlefield. So we have seen the battlefield, glimpse of battlefield last two weeks ago. That Pakistan, I think, pretty decisively won that session, won that episode. But each side is claiming that they are the victorious. So it's very hard to convince one side or the other that who won or who lost. But regardless of this battle, which happened 2 weeks ago, now we are in the post battle phase. Hopefully, because it's still expected that India can retaliate at any time, which is highly doubtful at this time, but it is still likely that there would be some follow up on the last excursion by India. Having said that, let's take a deeper look at how, um, after this battle encounter, how India and Pakistan are tackling in the foreign policy sphere. So, Casey, with that background, what do you think how India's diplomatic efforts are going on at this very moment? We have seen that a few delegations have been sent across the globe by India, and also Pakistan has just followed the path. So, what is going on in that domain?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So basically, I think, on the Indian side, it's pretty much claimed that it's a pause. So we have to understand, like, what does it mean by pause? It's like how long the pause is going to be. And if it's going to be a pause, this is going to be 6 years like last time, or is it going to be 6 months, or is it going to be 6 weeks? So it's all relevant. Um, and obviously, they want to actually send some people across all over the world because I think, in my opinion, I think it's going to be really difficult for India to actually kind of reinitiate something which is going to be along the lines of what they actually did. So escalation is going to be really difficult at this point in time. So at this point in time, you have to just kind of go on a path which would de-escalate and also recover the lost credibility. So that's the ultimate objective, I think. And you probably have seen, like, there's a campaign, and they're really good at running a campaign, especially on the web, and building a narrative and everything. So they've been doing that like for past week or 10 days. That uh, they also shot down two F-16s and one JF Thunder 17 and everything. And on the web, the problem is, like, because they have so many, pair of hands on the social media, as compared to other ones, like on the Pakistani side, they are well equipped to actually kind of propagate that narrative on much larger scale. So, for instance, if you look at the following on Twitter for Modi, that's over 100 million, 100 million people. And if you come to actually see any of the leader in Pakistan, it's hardly going to be anywhere between. I think the top one is about 20 for Imran Khan, and then rest of them are like over around 5 or 7 million. So you see the contrast in terms of actually building it. And same thing goes on the web. So on the web, if you are actually throwing in the stories, pretty much all left, right, and center, and you have people who are Indian origin in different media outlets all over the world, then effectively you'll be able to actually see that narrative put forward. So with that backdrop, they have actually sent out several people, and one of the prominent names is Shishi Tharoor, and he's been very learned person on India. His history, he's written many books, and he's very well spoken. So obviously that was the best choice for them, and he's been going around and he's exactly doing the same thing what's been asked to do. And on Pakistani side, I think Although it's headed by the foreign minister Sagdar, has been going on. But I mean, those visits are more so with the friendly countries. So, for instance, Zagdar went to China, Shabashiri went to Turkey, he's in Turkey right now. So they're just going to be actually consolidating on friendlier side. And I think that's good from Pakistani perspective, because that's those were the people who actually came to help Pakistan, and as long as they actually uh, uh, still there in any upcoming adventurism from India, then it's still going to be the case that where you would actually consolidate and solidify those relations rather than actually building the new ones. That's just my
Very
two.
interesting. Very interesting. So you mentioned Shashi Tharoor, right? He is, I think, visiting US, and there are other.
They are
Well,
going. They are actually going in every single. I mean, many countries, not
mm,
just. So I don't know exactly what the path is like, what the itinerary is like from step to step. But yeah, they're
yes,
going
no. So
everywhere.
I was going to focus on the aspect of foreign policy. So does it mean that this strategy of sending delegates to, I think they went to Sweden, Denmark, or US, and a plethora of other countries. Um, there seems to be some order to that, but hopefully, that's what we are assuming, that there is some order to this visits. But does it mean that India has failed on the foreign policy front by Jay Shankar, by the foreign policy, foreign ministry headed by Jay Shankar? And that's why they are now, I think, falling back onto this layer of, diplomatic representatives, especially Shashi Tharoor, who's the opposition party member, right? His party is the member of the Congress. So does it mean that the Jaishankar's or BJP's, in broader perspective, foreign policy has gotten a shock by this, um, but what happened 2 weeks ago, where nobody stood with India? I mean, vocally, like nobody was vocal about supporting India, and I think they were stunned by this response by their friends and allies. So does it mean that India has kind of failed in the diplomatic efforts led by especially Jaishankar?
No, I think this is entirely opposite. What people are actually, my reading is very different. So, for instance, this is like a very good step. I mean, this is like in contrast to what actually Pakistan is doing. So, for instance, this is an all party delegation. So it's not just BJP; it's like Congress and other parties also part of this. So, what India is doing is, even if they lost internally, or this narrative hasn't been really fulfilled, what the India was trying to actually portray, now is the time to actually solidify this. So when you actually go and talk to Congress, and Rahul Gandhi has been very vocal in the actual Lok Sabha and all the other places, and he's been actually saying and questioning about the Rafale deal, and or we already know that there were some hanky panky done in the Rafale deal. There was, like, it's been discussed at the time that the kickbacks were taken, and I mean, historically, India has been notorious about actually taking kickbacks or giving kickbacks whenever there is a military deal, military hardware deal. It happens pretty much all over the world. It happens sometime in Pakistan also, or in any other country, but it hasn't come. It doesn't come to that much light, as much it comes in India, for instance. So it's a very unique opportunity for India to actually come together, and that's what Modi is trying to do. So even if he lost on political front internally, that everybody started to question after 10th of May, and for next week or so, it was just like all taking care of the damage control. But now is kind of everybody is coming together and saying, okay, fine, we're going to go all around the world and we're going to save India. On Pakistani side, for instance, Pakistan actually came together during the war. So, for instance, the opposition, Imran Khan, is sitting in jail right now, and it was quite apparent that probably the current regime would would be considering to release Imran Khan. And PTI was on board while Pakistan was actually fighting this war. So, all the PTI pretty much supporters all around the globe were actually supporting and carrying the government narrative or Pakistan's narrative. Now, what has happened in last week or so, or whatever, 10 days or so, that those people are again going back to dissension. So, because of this announcement of General Asim Munir to be actually moved to Field Marshal rank, and PAF Air Chief is also being kind of given an option that he can actually continue without going when his retirement is going to be due. He can actually carry on. So those kind of instances or these kind of actions are going to be ultimately creating a dissension. So it's exactly how opposite is happening in Pakistani side, where Ishaq Dar and Shehbaz Sharif solely are going around the world and saying, "Oh, we have to consolidate." It would have been a lot better if there's similar sort of what India has done, that they could actually come up with a joint forum for all the political parties, and then go around the world and say and put up the Pakistan's case. So it's very, it's in contrast to what India did. Pakistan is doing entirely opposite,
No,
which, in my opinion, is not good.
yeah, that's pretty, like, as you mentioned, it's very obvious. But I was more focused on this Indian diplomatic approach to the world. It has, the way it has evolved over last decade or so, especially like after BJP. I think the first term started, and now in the second and third term, they're looking at the third term. So this approach, especially by the foreign ministry, where we see that they are directly and you know the approach towards the world, where they are very open about defending their interests. Of course, every country is doing that, but the approach which I think headed by Jay Shankar has been very direct and very vocal, and we have seen that he was in Europe, and he actually bashed Europe pretty hard, regarding that Europe thinks that the world's problems, that its problems are world's problem, but the world's problems are not Europe's problem. So he has been. So, do you think that this direct approach to defend the interest of India, and actually bashing the European countries, and I'm pretty sure that other countries as well felt the same. They had very, head-on kind of a relationship with Iran and other countries, where they are very much protective and very much open about defending India's interest. So this evolution over this last decade, has this really been effective, or it has exposed India's weaknesses to the world?
Look, the world we are living right now is very different, and I mean, every day there is something coming out. I mean, if you look at the geopolitical situation, I mean, the whole of Europe is kind of like turned on to Israel now, which wasn't the case. I mean, if you look at it, like, Europe was thinking that now is going to be the time that the Middle East kind of going to be settled, but recently France, UK, and Canada gone to the extreme where, I mean, England is also looking, Britain is also looking into actually having cut their trade ties with Israel. So, and the joint statement came by Macron and Stammer and Mark, was quite really unprecedented, in a way that France. I mean, if you look at it, like, Canada obviously kind of is Commonwealth, and for to go with Britain is very, you can actually predict this. And Mark, with so close ties to Britain, because he's been, I mean, obviously he's a dual national. I don't know if he's carrying still the British nationality or not. Actually, he's tri-national, but he has served on the Bank of England. So it's quite understandable that Canada's policies is going to be sort of in line with Britain. But with France to actually come on the same declaration, to give the message, very clear joint message to Israel Netanyahu, that back off, was quite unprecedented. And now what is happening recent, I mean, just Trump has come out literally a few hours ago and said to Putin that he's gone crazy. I mean, those were the words, like literally, he hasn't used those words that, Putin has been, but, Biden has used some really out of this world words for Putin. I don't want to mention those, but Trump finally said that he's gone crazy. So that means that, whatever we're going to be seeing in terms of the actual Ukrainian war is not going to be panning out how we expected that it's going to be panning out. Although the mineral deal, has already happened, which means that Trump doesn't have many choices he's left with.
No, I got that, Casey. So the important thing is that Trump is being Trump. Trump can say anything. Nobody else is Trump, right? So if Jaishankar is
No, but,
trying to pass
whatever I was saying is that I'm connecting that with India. So world doesn't want to know right now what the India has to say. So that you have to understand. So I'm just bringing all this like Middle Eastern element, Ukrainian element. Is Europe and America? It doesn't want to know what India has to say. Yes, they can go around and meet people. Yeah, that's fine. But there's a lot going on right now in the world.
so understandable. But I think at the same time, we should acknowledge this thing that India was, and I think probably it still is, coming up as a new China or new replacement of China, where especially after this kind of Cold War style battle between China and US, where President Trump wants to move out of China and bring the manufacturing back to US due to certain reasons, due to the removing this dependability on China. India was obviously a second option. I think India was sold on this thing idea, and that's why we see that this arrogance, this open defiance to the neighbors, where India was already thinking that it is going to be the new China, where the industries are coming, like Apple is coming, Tesla is going to come, so many other industries moving out of China and into India. So India had a strategic and has a strategic position where people were very much interested in India. Now, with this episode that happened 2 weeks ago, things have shifted quite a bit. Now we see that Trump's tone, especially, if you want to just look at Trump's tone, that has shocked Indians, and they are feeling the betrayal, where Trump has at least 7 to 8 times have mentioned that Trump has to interfere into this battle and stop this battle, and India has no clue this to this. They even are not accepting that Trump had to do anything with this ceasefire. Now, in this situation, this approach, like India had this position where they could be heard across the world. Um, this approach, sometimes you feel like Trump is a very particular case, and U.S. is a very particular case. So Trump sitting in the White House saying things to the world is entirely different. Although this is also going to create some ripple effect and come back some way or the other.
Right.
So Jaishankar's India's BJP's policy to take the world head on and criticize openly and publicly, the foreign matters with these nations. I think this has fired back in a sense that there has been no open, open support for India, and that's exactly why we're seeing that these delegates have been sent across the world. Had there been a bit of support, there would have been no need for this thing. So it is obviously pointing to the failure of diplomatic efforts, especially by the current foreign ministry. So, do you think that Jaishankar, given this approach, would be rethinking this approach, or India will double down on this approach, or maybe we are seeing that Jaishankar might be getting to the retirement, or like being replaced by somebody else?
No, I don't think so. I mean, the whole episode of what has happened, Balgam, was of something that, anybody, doesn't matter how competent they were and whatever the career they would have, nobody can actually sell that. You have to have some sort of like a substance. So, I mean, Shankar being the Shankar, like with the 50 years of experience in actually diplomacy, and then being pointed as the guy to represent the country, author of many books and all that, and has served in US and Canada and all that. But at the same time, you have to understand that, I mean, this is of unfolding, which nobody could really sell it to the world. I mean, yeah, it's a shining India, although India is like not really doing well on all fronts, but at the same time, it did very well diplomatically all around the globe. Like, I mean, they built after the Afghanistan withdrawal, if you look at it, like that was uh, the major blow to India. How it happened, how it evolved, and how US had to retreat from Afghanistan, and India invested so much into Afghanistan. But at the same time, they were able to actually, balance it with going into Middle East, for instance. They developed such a great relationship with Saudi, UAE, and Qatar, and all, which historically been aligned with the Pakistan, for instance. So they did a great job in terms of the actual. He did a great job in terms of actually bringing India to a level where, historically Pakistan was supported. But at the same time, I mean, they could not actually sell what they lost on the ground. So it's very difficult how to, circumvent the, downing three major like 4.5G planes, for instance, or escalation where he is filled with lies. I mean, literally, the whole Indian media was hysterical about this. So I don't think it was a failure of Jaishankar or the foreign policy on the Indian front, but it was just like a failure, like on the ground, basically. So I
Okay.
don't think that it was. And yeah, somebody has to be thrown under the bus. I don't know if it's going to be Jaishankar or not, but this to equate that sending all party delegation all around the globe is kind of a replacement to their foreign ministry delegation or something, and not headed by Jaishankar. I don't think that's a correct reading. I don't think Jaishankar should have been going around the world convincing people that they have done well. They
because he
haven't
has
done well. Yeah.
because he has already done the convincing and they did not bring any fruit.
Yeah,
Now,
they haven't done well. Simple. I mean, then you have to have a backup layer, and it's a very good strategy. In fact, if you look at it like in a conventional way of diplomacy, India still has a backup layer. So, for instance, you are sending this like all-party delegation to go around the world, and yet your own ministry is still there to actually do the official thing going on. Whereas Pakistan is on the very front, like going with his foreign minister and then prime minister. Even what's left out there, how you can actually solidify afterwards. So they have jumped to the end. But anyhow, Pakistan has on his own game and all that. But
so let's move on to Pakistan.
yeah.
So we've seen that India's direct approach to face the world, defend its interest. We've seen the Jaishankar in like fifth, I think the very, very experienced diplomat that could lead, the foreign ministry. 50 years of experience is quite a lot. We've seen this strategy where India has been very arrogant, very forceful to defend its interest and bring and convey the India's point of view, BJP's point of view, which we are seeing now that RSS and most right wing, where its religion is also a key part, has been kind of conveyed fully. It's very interesting to see that once you are very explicit about something, it carries a risk of exposure as well. Like you are saying, you as a diplomat would be considering that you are doing your job pretty well, but at the same time, I think some kind of ambiguity is a good thing. But India did not leave any ambiguity out, and that I think is has fired back. in these relationships, and we are seeing this that they are doing this effort. Now, let's switch our gears to focus on Pakistani side, where we see that Pakistan has been ambiguous. Pakistan has never been clear about its strategic position. Pakistan has jumped the ships between US and China, and now it seems like China is most like a stable ship for Pakistan. But at the same time, we would be surprised, and this has happened many times in the past, that any lucrative or any interesting interaction with US or offer with the US could entice Pakistan. So how would you define this Pakistan's, I think, pretty consistent strategic position, which is, of course, China is our best friend, China Pakistan's best friend, but at the same time, US doors are open for US as well. So how do you see this? Uh, what should I say? That this dual aspect of the foreign policy.
Look, there are many moving parts in this whole equation. It's not as simple as that. Like it's been seen as simple as Pakistan has a choice now, and it's been like with China and with US and sitting in between and pulling both kind of like threads on both sides. I mean, I think there are like many moving parts. U.S. intelligence report has recently come out, and they know very well. I mean, U.S. knows very well that there's one unifocus. I mean, it's just like so focused that Pakistan doesn't see any in any other direction. So Pakistan sees India as an existential threat. I mean, this is how focus is that. I mean, literally, Pakistan doesn't have any other existential, forget about any existential, any threat whatsoever. Pakistan doesn't see it. I mean, in past 75 years, for instance, if you actually look at it, the only exception I would say is, the internal war, which at some point in time, Pakistan actually felt that, and that was also driven by India. So all the TTP and BLA element is also actually popping out, which is driven by India. So Pakistan doesn't see any other country as a major threat to its integrity. So for Pakistan to actually come about this, I think is taken care very well. I mean, if you look at it, like apart from 71, when the two countries were broken into two, but apart from that, Pakistan doesn't want to see any other way, I think. And I don't know whether it's a correct assessment or not, but at the same time, this is what the reality is. And since India is going to be looking at Pakistan, which we discussed many a times, that India looks towards Pakistan as a nuisance, but not anymore after May 10th, for instance, because the problem is now, India sees as Pakistan as another like ancillary for China. So when India sees that, it's effectively what India has to take care of. It is two-front war, and it's been talked about like since Pulwama, for instance, 6 years ago. That's how it's been looked at, and it's been discussed many a times, and now it's discussed more so that the next war is going to be two-front war. Now India knows that very well, that it cannot actually fight a two-front war, and their intellectuals are right now discussing a level, this like whole war framing, that what would happen. And in my opinion, I think it's not just about two-front war anymore. It's about three-front war, because the Bangladesh is gearing up too. So if you are actually on three sides taken care of, then what's going to be the ultimate outcome of it? So I think Pakistan, to see your initial question that whether Pakistan doesn't have to see itself whether aligned with China or US, but Pakistan, the more is going to be in a situation where it's going to be cornered, and it has to militarily defend itself or fight a war. Doesn't matter how long the war is, whether it's internal war or external war, Pakistan is going to get more closer to China rather than US. Now, US knows that very well, that this is going to be the case, that ultimately what's going to happen is Pakistan is going to be shifting its center towards more so towards China if it's going to be a lot more dependent on the military supplies. Thereby, US has to rely on appeasing Pakistan either through trade or giving loans or keep it indebted or like keep its politicians and military guys in his pocket. Those are the tools they've been using for a long period of time.
So for Pakistan, basically, choosing between China or US is the option. Has
I don't
always.
think there is a either or. I mean, the people have seen it this way,
Yeah.
that Pakistan has to at some point in time. I was the one. I actually, literally, a few months ago, I used to think that now is the time that Pakistan would have to actually choose out of those two. But while Trump is in the office, I don't think Pakistan has to actually make this choice because ultimately, what's going to happen? Pakistan, if chooses, let's say, let's figure this out, if this is going to be the choice where Pakistan has to choose one, effectively it's making other country upset, right? So, for instance, let's say Pakistan chooses China, it's making US upset. Now, when Pakistan makes US upset, what happens? They're gonna pick up the phone call and then say something to Pakistan, which Pakistan cannot actually defend itself from. And then ultimately, um, Trump, do we think that Trump is going to actually take a retaliatory measures against Pakistan? I don't think so. Pakistan is not Cuba. Pakistan is not Canada. Pakistan is not like any other country. I mean, it's a nuclear nation. Um, uh, you cannot deal with Pakistan as Canada or as Colombia, two extreme examples like I've already given you. So Canada is not nuclear nation. Colombia is just nowhere to be seen, and so they can be bullied, but Canada cannot be bullied. But they are not the military power. Pakistan is 7,000 miles away, and is in close proximity, sharing a border with China. How you going to actually deal with Pakistan? So I think when Trump's example, Trump is going to actually deal with it, give and take, and that's how it's going to be dealt with.
Yeah, so that's very interesting aspect. Basically, because we have seen this thing that Trump is a deal maker, right? So I think people are now describing Trump's policies and all that ambiguity surrounding by Trump is becoming very obvious. And that is that if you make a deal with Trump, you give something, in return you will get something. It's very obvious. There's no one-way street anymore. Now, looking at this thing, this sudden or I think shocking support by Trump in favor of Pakistan, because it's in favor in Pakistan in India's point of view, because India never imagined, especially the current government, that India will be hyphenated. The terminology is that Pakistan. They thought that we are so superior that we should not be hyphenated with Pakistan. In India, India dash Pakistan or India hyphenated Pakistan, which Trump has mentioned several times, that they are both the same in Trump's view. And he's saying that both the countries need to sit down and have maybe a dinner or something to solve these matters. And India is kind of shocked. Now, if we look a little bit deeper from the surface, it looks like that Trump has obviously um, some kind of return from Pakistan for this favor. Now, many people are describing this as some kind of deals which are going on, especially regarding the minerals in Pakistan. If we look at the approach, I think if I was or you were Trump, or any sane person is in Trump's shoes, it will be very obvious that a country like Pakistan is very easy to deal with because it's militarily mostly, the regime is supported by establishment. It's easier to deal with. It's not a like purely a whole democratic process. At the same time, in India, it's a democracy. I think India is more protective of its resources and everything. So it feels like that Pakistan is more easy to deal with by the Trump administration. And the obvious reason we have seen recently, and reports are not verified, but it looks like that some of the US companies making deals with Pakistani establishment or Pakistan's government at this time to extract minerals. And we have seen Trump has been very vocal about minerals because that's the only thing that US doesn't have in abundance, like China has or like Canada has some, and Ukraine has a lot of minerals. Looks like Pakistan and Afghanistan have quite considerable amount of these minerals which have not been discovered yet. So is this the minerals that are playing in Trump's mouth, or is it something else?
You know, one thing, I mean, today what has happened is like I'm just beginning to wonder. And I think this is going to be the actual, really deciding factor that how it's going to pan out. We have seen, I mean, in first 100 days that's what Trump does. He's the negotiator. He actually goes and put the stakes so high up, but then ultimately you actually back down from it and somewhere settle in between. So this is how the tactic is being done. I mean, you read his book and then it's all about the negotiation. It's about the actual deal making. So it's all about deal breaking. But the thing is, what if the deal doesn't work out? Yes, in the business doesn't matter. Like if a deal doesn't work out, you go to the next deal. You go and work out something else. In a political scenario, it doesn't work like that. I mean, because there is a geography involved here, there are people involved, and then sometimes it doesn't work out. And when it doesn't work out, then what's the play? What's the backup plan here? So, for instance, if you look at it on both scenarios, there are two things: Gaza and Ukraine. If the deal making is not going to work out, so for instance, Gaza is not deal making is not working out right now. Whatever some extraordinary statements has been passed on, or being said by Trump that I'm going to actually make all the touristic place in Gaza, for instance, has put behind, and now is being into Saudi and Qatar and the UAE and secured about $2.5 trillion and all those kind of things. Got about $400 million plane, and so now what about Gaza? Tell me what's happening with that. Same thing with Ukraine, for instance. So when he's saying, uh, when he starts to say that Putin is crazy, what's going to be the outcome of it? So ultimately, if Putin says, I want whole of Ukraine, and Trump says, you cannot have whole of Ukraine, you can only have what you have actually captured up till now. And then Putin says, no, I'm just going to carry on actually bombing people, and I'm just going to carry on, with my incursions into the actual Ukraine and then taking over Ukraine, for instance. What Trump is going to do? Is he going to actually hand it back to his generals and say, okay, fine, here you come in? Or is going to start shaking hands with Europeans, and Europeans say, how can we trust you? Because the way you've been acting for past whatever, like 4 months, we cannot really build our strategies based on what you going to tell us. So these kind of scenarios now pushing the world to a level where God knows what's going to happen, because
No,
Trump
that's
doesn't have an
right.
answer
But
for it.
I was more focused on what Trump has said about Pakistan. Pakistan has been boosted by Trump. I think Trump has praised Pakistan openly. Now, my
But,
question was,
but this is the exact point I'm saying, that this is how you have to see it, because whatever the deal, we don't know why this ceasefire happened. We are up till this point, we are saying whether Pakistan was about to actually use the nuclear weapon or India was about to use that. Why would India actually resort to a ceasefire? This is still a big question mark here, because
Mhm.
India has actually such a damning blow to their whole narrative, and yet they would stop at this point. Now the point is, would India accept it? That's the point. And I'm trying to actually say, does Trump has the answer for it?
Hmm.
That's what I'm trying to actually link up this.
No, I get that part, but my focus was on the Pakistani side at the moment. So from the Pakistani side, like if you are Trump and you are weighing two sides, in between these two sides you have to choose one. Looks like in Trump has chosen Pakistan because he has praised Pakistan. He has recognized the Kashmir as a territory which is disputed, which India hates to see.
Look, what one thing you have to understand, and we did discuss that like a couple of weeks ago about this particular point, that it's not about Trump. Okay.
Mhm.
Yes, it feels that it's only Trump, but this is how the Republicans deal with Pakistan. Republicans has always been, doesn't matter, even during 9/11. If you look at it, I mean, Pakistan was, and so apparent that Pakistan was like part of the deal, and they tried to actually blame Pakistan for it, even though there was not a single person from Pakistan to actually kind of commit those, supposedly, those Twin Towers. But at the same time, Pakistan was dealt with firsthand. I mean, if you look at it, like Dick Cheney, Rice was here. They were making deals. They were actually having an NRO in UAE. Benazir was meeting. Why would they get involved so much? Musharraf was actually traveling to the US, shaking hands, and saying, I'm on board, giving free access. Republicans are saying, here you go, money flowing, Pakistan growing at the 6% GDP. I mean, Republicans has always been, doesn't matter what it is. Look at the Reagan time. Look at the, um, um, you know, Clinton time, for instance. What happened to Clinton? Clinton wouldn't even shake a hand with another person. They have, Pakistanis has to actually lay down literally that please come to our country.
Mhm.
When he was visiting India. But when he came, he
You're
actually
saying this is basically a GOP Republican policy that they favor Pakistan more toward,
that's their tilt. Whenever Democrats going to come in, it's going to be a hard time for Pakistan,
But
and
the
that's
thing
what we
is,
see in
but the
Biden.
thing is that at the same time we consider that Trump is Trump. Trump is not GOP. Trump doesn't follow the GOP. Trump even maybe not be aware of the GOP's policy.
Yeah, but he has those people. If you look at it, Richard Garnow, for instance, like Richard was actually 2 weeks before, or sorry, 4 weeks before, he was tweeting about free Imran Khan or Pakistan should be better off with this. Why all these congressmen and senators are getting involved with Pakistan? All these Republican ones, they are, because they see like Pakistan has got some deal. Anyhow, sorry. In terms of Pakistan, as you were saying, that I think America is not in a hurry to put Pakistan in a position where it would say is either us or China. You decide. I don't think America is in a hurry to actually put Pakistan
Sure.
in that position.
Makes sense. So I think from Pakistani perspective, it has been very, I think Pakistan has clarified one thing that they can use, first of all, Chinese weaponry, which was always the question mark, because a general impression is that half of Chinese goods don't work, but this time they have worked. So we have seen
Look,
this.
one point you have to also understand, it's not just Pakistan, okay? America has kind of like tasted this kind of dualness recently by another country. It's exactly the same, similar sort of scenario. So the militaries are the same, people are kind of same. Like obviously the size of the country is not exactly the same, like it's less than half. But both of the countries are sit on the major corridor of the world, and they have very close ties. And the other country is Turkey. Now, Turkey being part of the actual NATO, so close to US and everything, but is clearly told US that we're going to have S-400s. And this is so whatever the relationship Pakistan has, I mean, Turkey historically has been that country which not very friendly. But if you look at it, all the Turkic nations, so whatever is being taken over and became the USSR, it was all Turkic nations. I mean, if we think that Turkey is just like this simple mini country, no, it's not. It was it's an Ottoman Empire, and it goes all the way to Central Asia, so all the way to Kyrgyzstan, connecting to the China. That's all Turkey. So Turkey has been dealing in a similar fashion, and if US was okay with it, US tried to actually do a coup in 2015 in there, primarily for this reason. They're probably going to actually have the similar sort of approach towards Pakistan, maybe, but Pakistan has been all aligned with the US for past whatever since its creation. So now it's not going to be any different.
Got
But
it.
with uh, with all this gear and military close working relationship, Pakistan is going to be a difficult case for US to deal with at this point.
I see. I think maybe it's a case to case basis. Maybe Pakistan is a um, good partner where Pakistan can, you know, Trump can make some deals around minerals and around Afghanistan and whatnot, and get the benefit as much as possible. Now, moving on from Pakistani side to
Another
India.
thing on, sorry about this, like just quick point. Another thing, the same deal is being offered to Ukraine, for instance. Trump didn't have any problem on the areas where the Putin is that you dig your minerals. This is Ukraine also, and let us dig our let's make this place very peaceful, not to actually go and encroach your area, and then let us dig out minerals. Okay, same thing could be Pakistan. China is really upset. Like its engineers are getting, being attacked like pretty much every other month in Pakistan. And because of that BLA and TTP and all this, like all these proxies are kind of actually working against that. And China is not able to actually get a sustainable, peaceful place where they can actually work and have this corridor, which they actually been building for past whatever 10, 11 years now, and hasn't been able to fully develop this infrastructure. So if America comes in and say, okay, fine, let us have our share because it's so much. Let us have our minerals, and you have your corridor, and we both not going to have any problem to actually do a business with. Then Pakistan is going to be happy customer for both of them.
Yeah. So moving on from Pakistani side now to the India side. Now, after what we have seen that what has happened in the diplomatic front, we've seen the ties between of those two countries. I think India mostly relying on Russia and Russian weaponry, which I think they are now maybe reconsidering Russia and some European. Now, if we look at this, what are the possible comeback options for India? So, is India going to directly retaliate, or as they have said that this is just a pause in this battle in this war, or are they going to launch this, which they have already started this global diplomatic effort? How they are going to tackle Pakistan's kind of a surprised kind of victory in the battleground? What are the possible options now for India to come back into the game? You're mute, I think.
So the only option they have is make this, geography as the how would I put it? It's a battleground for both two superpowers. That's the only way India could actually come back into this game. There's no other way. And
So how?
for that to happen, India has to have like all the apparatus US has. So, for instance, it starts supplying them with F-35s, starts supplying them with EMPs, it starts supplying them with satellite covers, intelligence, have access to Five Eyes intelligence. So all those kind of things. So effectively, what you're talking about, like the moment it start to happen, then effectively this subcontinent will become the battleground for two superpowers.
Yeah, no, but is this the only option India has on the table? Like,
Only
what
option.
about are they? So, are we ruling out that there's no possibility of India, Pakistan talking to each other, sitting on the table?
I mean, the thing is, like India for that, like would try to and maybe de-escalate to a level where America would say, okay, let's do business. I mean, um, so transit trade for Afghanistan has to start to actually flow now, which was kind of on hold. But at the same time, similar sort of efforts has already been planned. As we discussed last time, Sagdar, when it went to Beijing, nobody was expecting. I wasn't expecting that the Muttaqi was also actually turn up. So, Foreign Minister Wang actually invited him over too, and put both of them, like he was holding both hands, like Isagdar's and Muttaqi's hand, like this, uh, showing it to the world that okay, Pakistan and Afghanistan are going to actually remove their differences. So it's a lot happening. The moment US come into this picture, which are the other countries it is going to actually bring to the table? who's going to actually support India. And as we already discussed that, India lost in past whatever this extremism they have created within India has lost all its neighbors. They lost Maldives, they lost Sri Lanka, they lost
Bangladesh.
Bhutan, they lost Nepal, and Nepal is the only Hindu country in the world, literally, a Hindu majority country. They lost them. Bhutan, they lost. So Myanmar is already been taken over by the military junta. So what else is left to India? Nothing. Even Chabahar, the investment they made, Afghanistan situation has changed. Iran, this Major Gawaria is saying like he was a pig, came to our country. Now this is a diplomatic, debacle in all levels, and Iran going all the way to saying, well, "What the hell is going happening on your media right now?" So they are losing their friends because of this
So
extreme.
basically, we are talking about that there's no possible option that Pakistan India can de-escalate to a level and where they come to the table and negotiate with each other, or maybe resolution of Kashmir's issue could de-escalate as well. So is there any? I totally understand that BJP has a very different agenda. They are fueled by this, Hindu superiority complex, where they think that Indians are far, Hindus are far superior than the other nations or other countries or even ethnic groups within India. So with this kind of a mindset, it is challenging. It's hard to come down and to a level where you think that you can negotiate with a junior partner like Pakistan and have a
Look, for
constructive.
that to happen, like it also has to happen on Pakistani side too. If it was Bajwa, I would say in a heartbeat, yes, it would have happened. If it was Musharraf, I would say in a heartbeat. If it was Imran Khan, he would say, okay, you take one step, we'll take two. But in this case, you have a field marshal now who is ready to fight because his credibility is built on this notion that he's won the war.
Mhm.
He got all this political clout because of this. So for him, it's going to be very difficult to actually back down.
Okay, so it's
It goes in his favor. Goes in his favor that it escalates more. The moment he's been shown as tracking back to a normalcy, where it says, okay, fine, LOC is going to become the border now, or I'm going to do a deal on Kashmir, or something like this to an extent, then ultimately he's losing his political clout.
so basically saying it's very difficult, very unlikely that this kind of a negotiation or de-escalation happens where both countries can sit together. Even if, which is very highly unlikely that BJP would be willing to do that, but it's very highly unlikely from Pakistani side as well to take a step forward in this direction and have a de-escalation at the diplomatic level. Now,
Something would happen, like let's say for instance they will have like similar sort of 50 or 100 million dollar trade happening across Vaga, or like some confidence building measures, like in terms of actually taking the staff level to the same number which was before in Pakistan's high commission in Delhi and Indian high commission in Islamabad. I mean, some sort of normalcy you would probably would see, but normalcy on the level where it was before the actual Palgam, not going beyond that.
mhm. So at the same time, when we are talking about how India can come back, we are seeing that India has actually started a very weird or like I mean a very unexpected move where India has fortified, actually expedited the delivery of arms to Armenia, which is fighting with Azerbaijan, which of course supported Pakistan. So this this could be interpreted in two ways. Maybe that India wants to get rid of the stockpile of the weapons which they don't think will work with Pakistan, so they want to get rid of them and sell it to Armenia. Or secondly, they are expanding their influence, and by with the force they are trying to like force their opinion to the world, and maybe cornering Azerbaijan to stop supporting Pakistan. Although this support is just, I think, more kind of a moral, or like, nothing significant regarding any army or militarily. At the same time, they are also criticizing Turkey very heavily, and I think Shashi Tharoor or some Indian diplomats have actually criticized the aid to Turkey when there was earthquake. So imagine the level of uh, now the mentality where BJP government is going to that level where they are trying to even criticize. I think Tamil Nadu, or sorry, Kerala, they gave a significant amount of aid to Turkey. So they said this was not really spent. So what kind of this global policy is like arming the enemies of Pakistan's allies, criticizing Pakistani allies very publicly and very, you know in a very childish way.
Only way out for India, I think, right now is to kind of like, and that's what it looks like, that probably Modi is going to actually lose next election. And if that happens, then that's when you see that India would have like a cushion to kind of like work out alternate strategy in the new world order. But India has to work out, like, it's kind of like sandwich in this scenario. They put a lot of eggs in one bucket, and because of that, like, the scenario is totally kind of like pushing India towards the wall. Because you know this 4-day war has changed everything. I mean, people don't realize it, because a lot of ammunition has been tested, a lot of scenarios has been tested. Pakistan has never been helped in a similar fashion, although Pakistan has helped in Arab wars and many other wars. But Pakistan has never been helped with other nations, and in this case, like, it was physically helped by Turkey and China.
Mhm.
So, and many other countries were willing to, if they were asked to. Like, for instance, Bangladesh has recently been actually gone through a political turmoil, but Bangladesh probably would have come for help. Um, and on Pakistani front, like, for Azerbaijan would have come up front, like, if needed. So, I mean, the point I'm trying to say here is that Pakistan has actually established or set some new precedences in this. So, in the history in remaking, doesn't matter. You can go, and India realizes it. It's just symbolic, as
Mhm.
going to Armenia and saying, "Here you go. You can have art twice because it's not going to be used." It's like, I had enough of it playing with the toys, and I pass on to my younger brother.
Mhm.
That younger brother is not gonna. He's gonna appreciate that. Fine. I mean, otherwise, my elder brother is not gonna actually give me that. But now I have these toys. But when the younger brother grows up, then he realizes that it wasn't such a sacrifice by my older brother because he didn't like it anyway. Then he's gonna realize that. Is that kind of a scenario?
No, it's very funny. Now, moving on from this to the final part of our conversation, I think, and that is if India is likely to retaliate. We have looked at all the options, that if the diplomatic efforts will be played, this global policy they are trying to do, they are trying to spread the influence through selling arms, through to the enemy, to the enemies of allies of Pakistan, and sending diplomatic delegates. So we have seen a quick rundown of these options, what they have. Now, India is not well known for hybrid war. Like they like Pakistan is sometimes accused of a hybrid war, and that is in a sense of rather than having a direct war, you go about this kind of incidents, which of course Pakistan is denying that there's Pahalgam or Pulwama or other areas where these skirmishes happen. This kind of a hybrid strategy. Now, if we look at India's approach, India has directly threatened Pakistan. Last time when they sent the planes and Pakistan downed their MiG plane with Abhinandan as a pilot, that was also a direct attack on Pakistan, in the name of like targeting the terrorists. Now, does India going to follow through, or is it already following on the hybrid war strategy where we see BLA, we see TTP, and we are now seeing the army incident which happened recently? So, is India going to choose the hybrid part, or it is going to take Pakistan head on? If decides to go in the battlefield again, not diplomatically, but deciding through the war.
Look, this is for the very first time I've actually saw Pakistanis coming out as directly blaming any incident to India. So as I said, like, I mean, now you have a field marshal there. So now is going to be a different game altogether. Pakistan, remember, like when we were discussing, the Pakistan response has always been very muted, and not directly attacking India for any of the actual Jafar Express is prime example. Like you have the whole train is being hijacked, and yet Pakistan was not really directly pointing fingers on India. Why? Although there were credible intelligence and they had that. But now when the Khuzdar happens, uh, instantly, ISPR comes out and say it was done by India. So now it's going to be a different, tongue you'll get to hear from Pakistani side, that Pakistan is going to actually start to actually blame India for every instance which is going to happen on Pakistan, and they're going to come up with some, credible intelligence also. So last time, now in terms of the Khuzdar, like they have actually shared some intelligence, some, you know, uh, recordings, and they talked about like some tweets, some channels. They actually published those kind of news. Some footage is being published 23 minutes before the actual officially it was announced, and those kind of things. So effectively, Pakistan is not going to back down in hybrid war either. So that war is going to be happening in a similar fashion. I think the cyber war is going to be also happening in parallel from Pakistani side. So India has to be very careful, because now it's an entirely different ball game, because Pakistan was lacking majorly in terms of the actual satellite coverage, which is now provided by China. And there are reports that Pakistani pilots are already getting trained in the GB area, on the border of China and Pakistan, getting trained on F-35s. So not J-35s. So if Pakistan actually gets the J-35s like within whatever, like 4 to 6 months, then effectively Pakistan already has the fifth generation plane, which means that there's no other plane or no other system can actually take it down other than F-35s, which is the parallel. And then Pakistanis are making all these kind of memes like you always hear, and this is like a fair thing, in my opinion. I think if you want to actually militarily put the two nations together and say, okay, fine, let's fight. Pakistan says, okay, give us the Rafale, and if it was just about the plane, then we'll just fight on the same planes. So you have the Rafale, we have the Rafale, and then we'll fight and we'll see who will win. So anyhow, this is what the scenario is, and Pakistan is not going to back down even in hybrid war. So if it continues to, feel that pinch, then maybe they'll probably start to work on their own plans and activate their sleeper cells in India. And now, especially on the Seven Sisters side, you have this new Bangladesh. So you have entirely different ball game altogether. So it's
Yeah.
not just as simple as going into Afghanistan and get the funding over to TTP or BLA. It's going to be a lot more complex.
So hybrid war is of course happening.
It's already
Now
happening.
it's only the option is that all in war is a possibility or not. So it will be very devastating, I think, if we see something similar happens in India in the coming weeks. It will be all cry and disaster, and I'm pretty sure at that time, given BJP's stance, either Modi would be in a very difficult situation to convince its people, the public, that that they're not going to war with Pakistan on this.
No, but
That
yeah,
they
there is a difference. In my opinion, I think if Pakistan
have-
is to actually conduct something, okay, just hypothetically speaking, I think it's going to be entirely different. It's not going to be something that, okay, Pakistan just simply go and conduct something in India. It's going to be along the lines that, it's going to be this case, this file is going to be given to, let's say, US, or sent to Britain, or sent to China, and then say, here you go, unless you take care of it, and this time for good. Otherwise, we'll be open and don't blame us if we conduct something in India. So it's going to be along those lines, in my opinion, because otherwise it's going to be very devastating for Pakistan if Pakistan, just out of a blue go and do something as a retaliatory measure. Um, and, something happening in India is very different. Something happening in Kashmir is very different. So in Kashmir, like Pulgam or Pulwama and all those, like this, Pakistan considered always that, okay, this is like a disputed territory. But in the mainland, it's an entirely different story, which
Like
India has been conducting in Lahore and KP and Balochistan. It's a
the Mumbai
mainland.
attacks. We're talking about Mumbai.
Mumbai
What
attacks.
happened in Mumbai? So it's very interesting. I think we have very interesting times ahead of us, and very challenging. It could be very challenging for both of the countries, especially I think Pakistan economically cannot sustain this thing, this pressure for long. At the same time, we can see that India economically maybe can spend more money on on these weapons and these planes and the battlefield preparation. But Pakistan, because economic conditions is quite stringent, it will be challenge for Pakistan to sustain this mindset. And I think there are reports that army has already asked for more money from the government recently after this, especially, and there's no excuse for that. Now they have to provide for that money, but it's gonna strain other development efforts in the country. At the same time, India is going to suffer economically by becoming a hotspot in the world where investment may not be the safest for the investors across the globe. So these are very interesting times ahead of us. Thank you so much, KZ, for walking us through this scenario and discussing all the options of the battlefield. To our
Yeah, just
viewers,
on this particular, you said like they asked for more money. It's about $3 billion. So currently,
yeah,
the budget is about 7 billion, in terms of the US dollar. Like it's about 200,000, 2 trillion rupees. So which is roughly works out about seven. So now they asked for three more. So
yeah.
roughly about one third more. I think, but that money is going to be going towards like buying all that,
So from
equipment.
7 to 3 billion more, I think it's like 40%, right? So 40 to
Yeah, about
45%.
30%. Because I mean, they're like rupee rate and all those kind of things.
Yeah,
I'm
okay.
just saying it's about 30%, 35%,
It's
maybe.
significant, which is very
It's
significant.
significant, yeah. It is
Very
significant. And this money has to, I mean, the Pakistani budget is already run in deficit. So, and deficit is not like, 10-20% deficit. It's about 50% deficit. So the
significant.
last budget was presented was 18 trillion, out of which only 8 trillion was the income. So 10 trillion was the borrowed money. So
Very interesting. So this is going to put more pressure on Pakistan. And if we, before concluding this conversation, if we, because this is a very important point, if we look into this strategy, if India has to destroy Pakistan, economically, I think this, if we try to understand the bigger picture, and if India is thinking in that direction, this could be one way to really put pressure on Pakistan, is to sustain this pause mindset that the battle is on the pause, and make Pakistan spend more money, more resources on the preparation for this defense or preparation for this war rather than economic efforts. And this is gonna, I'm not sure because I'm not an economist, but it looks like that it's going to be very devastating for Pakistan if this lingers on. So from Pakistani side, it looks like they want to finish this off very quickly, either do or die, make resolve this case, given that there's also a threat of existential threat of the water from Indian side. So combine these two things, water threat, also this prolonged pressure on Pakistan for in the like, we are coming after you, we are coming after you, we are coming after you, and Pakistan keeps spending dollars on the bullets and the on the planes. So this is going to be very interesting situation ahead of us, and we'll keep discussing this as it is goes on. For our viewers, thank you so much for watching this episode, and we encourage you that you follow us
You know,
on.
every single time you actually leave this point, and then I have to comment on this, but just one last comment. You
Sure.
know, for Pakistan has to spend very little money on the
Mhm.
defense. So if it's you're talking about like $3 billion, it's just literally nothing as compared to what India has to. India is going to be uh, far worse off. It sustains this problem. You have to understand that. You know, India is a departmental store. Um, Pakistan is a grocery shop. You know, grocery shop can afford to be shut down, the shutter shut down for like a couple of days, not a problem, maybe 3 months, because it can afford to actually pay the rent for the grocery shop. But for the mall to kind of close their doors for their customers for extended period of time is not feasible, because you have like a lot more expenses for the the departmental store. So you have to understand, and there are a lot more employees. You have to pay a lot of salaries. You have to
There are
pay
opportunities,
a lot of
and there are new
taxes.
opportunities as well. New opportunities for the industries moving to India. So it's very interesting on both sides. But I was just considering Pakistani side as a like a kind of underdog economically, and of course India is bigger, much more bigger, and can sustain it longer in a sense of this battle. This battle, which is kind of a stalemate kind of a situation where nobody is conceding. But of course, if it sustains, uh, it's gonna strain Pakistan's economy pretty hard. Of course, as you mentioned, India will have it will have consequences for India's economy as well. So with that, again, for our viewers, please follow us on our YouTube and of course the X. If you're watching on X, where KZ hosts a lot of other, Twitter Spaces or X Spaces. So please follow us and leave us comments if you want us to discuss any particular topics, and we will be here again in uh, next couple of days with a newer topic in discussion. Thank you, KZ. I think it's pretty late at your side, and it's almost 1:30, 1:40 a.m. at here in Canada. We will be back again. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Take care.